Hello, it's Dawn Michelle and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to do another playing with pairs. I have 6 different pairings that we're going to play with together. Each of these pairings feature a new deck in my collection, or in this case, 2 new decks in my collection. So I thought we'd just hang out together and see how they work and what we can find to pair with them. So the first pairing that we're going to do here is the Witch's Familiar Oracle cards paired with the Tarot of Sacred Kingdoms. The Witch's Familiar is a mass market Oracle deck, and the Tarot of Sacred Kingdoms I think is an indie deck, but I did find it on Amazon. So to start with, let me show you the backs of each of these cards. This is the back of the Tarot of the Sacred Kingdoms and the back of the Witch's Familiar. So the Witch's Familiar Oracle is a fun one. It's totally Krista made me do it. Krista from Krista Chronicles. We were doing one of our WTF, I think it was our first one, and she pulled this deck out and I was just like, I need it. So I guess because of the teal border around it, this like oval thing, does kind of feel a little bit portal-y to me, which is kind of cool. I thought to pair this one with it. Again, these are both new decks in my collection, so I haven't worked with either one yet, but I thought maybe pairing them together might be really interesting. And I think it's that cohesive blue, kind of blue-green across both the decks that really made me think that they might go well together. Also, I did kind of buy it because there's a Goblin card, and I absolutely love this card. I do sometimes tend to a little bit poke fun at decks like this that have this very like early 2000s photo collaging going on, but actually these aren't done, like most of them are done fairly well, and it does kind of take me back to that time and place. It is shiny edged, and I am going to trim it, but I thought it'd be interesting paired with this Tarot of the Sacred Kingdoms because they kind of both have a sort of otherworldly magical energy to them. So here we have Wasp with Revenge between the 9 of Cups and the Queen of Cups. That's kind of pretty. I like that. The Blackbird with Omens between the 5 of Pentacles and the Ace of Pentacles. Ooh, interesting. Also, like, I love when I can pick up color, like color threads, right? There's yellow, yellow, yellow. That's a color thread that I would follow across those cards. So the light, the beak, and the light again. So that might tell me something about how the energy is moving across this reading. I love when that happens. Well, I kind of like this combo. I wasn't really sure. It was really just the borders that kind of drove me to pull these both out together, but I actually really kind of like them together. So we have Nymph with Promiscuity between the Queen of Swords and the 2 of Cups. I kind of like it. I kind of dig it. This deck kind of reminds me a little bit of a little bit more of a softer version of the cosplay deck, which I absolutely love. I did a whole video on it. Why can I not think of the name of it? Anyway, I'll insert it. It kind of reminds me of like a bit more of a storybook version of that, which is really cool. So we have Fairy with Glamour between the Ace of Wands and the Knight of Cups. I do actually really like these. I'm interested to get into the guidebook for the Witch's Familiar to see how the entries are. Again, some of these are decks that are very new to my collection I haven't worked with yet. I am definitely going to have to explore this combo. I'm actually really loving it. It's super cool. Crab with Retreat between the 8 of Cups and the Queen of Wands. These might be 2 little decks that just end up kind of being a little mate. The Elf with Mischief and the Phoenix and 4 of Pentacles. Okay, so this one, not so beautifully done in terms of the photo collaging, but you know, it's still good. It's still good. I really do like it. There's something about the imagery, and it's just like, it takes me back to that time and place, but then also this feels very in the now. So again, this is a very me thing, you know, as being somebody who was learning to be a designer in the late 90s into early 2000s when I was just, you know, finishing up my training and things like that. This Oracle deck takes me back to that place, which is so great. But then this Tarot deck feels very in the present moment. It feels very now. It feels very in the art style of today. Also because like I do believe they used some AI to help polish images in this deck as well. I really don't know anything about the creators or anything. This was an impulse purchase. I saw it on Amazon. I really love the images and I was just like, buy it now. So I don't know anything about it, but I think it's gorgeous and I really, really like it. Actually, I think it's really well done. Mole with Superstition between the Knight of Wands and the Sun. Well, that's kind of cool. Addiction with the Magpie. Again, loving the coloration. Also, I really like that the oracle is actually kind of like a little bit more sharper. It's more like in your face, where there is this almost like soft haze to the sacred kingdoms. Yes, to the sacred kingdoms, that gives it a real sort of fantasy fairy tale kind of esque energy. And I don't know, something about that contrast between the dreamlike quality of the tarot versus the sharpness of the photo manipulation in the oracle deck actually works really well in these. I mean, shall we just flip through the whole thing? I didn't start with a full deck, so we're not going to be seeing the full thing, but Bat with direction, the 10 of Cups and the 4 of Cups. Ooh, interesting. The color play also. The color play is really, really good. All right, let's just do one more. The Hedgehog, King of Swords, 8 of Swords. Beautiful. I really like these together. I'm sold. All right, so the next combo we're going to try is the Witch Sister Tarot, which is new to my collection, with the Brian Froud Faeries Oracle, which is not. Here, let's look at the backs together. Backs are beautiful on both decks. So I thought this might be an interesting one to pair because I had talked about, this is by the same creator, the same artist as the Tower of a Hidden Realm. And I had that deck and I rehomed it because I was like, I had a whole thing. I was like, it doesn't feel Fae to me. It doesn't feel like a Fae deck. And I was working with Fae energy in the way of Brian Froud's Fae. And so I felt like they kind of competed with each other in my brain. It was a weird thing that happened. I've since repurchased the deck because I have a whole new lease on that deck. So I thought it might be interesting to pair this because the Witch Sister definitely does not feel like a Fae deck to me. But I really thought the Fae energy might be really cohesive with it. I cannot read most of these, so we'll just look at the tarot associations here. So we have the Witch of Trees and Tradition. I mean, the artwork in both of these decks is gorgeous, right? I feel like the Fae coming through the Fairies deck would actually provide like a really great focal point in that kind of succinct energy coming through, as like that's kind of like the guiding energy, and then I could use the tarot of the Witch Sister to really explore that energy in a deep, maybe even sort of personal kind of connection. I just think it's really gorgeous together, actually. I feel like energetically they sit in the same space. They both feel wild, they both feel potent, but in different ways. Whereas the Witch Sister feels potent in a more of a real world sense, and the Brian Froud Faeries feels very potent in an otherworldly sense. So I really like that blend of bringing the mundane and the magical together. They both feel very alive, very rich, but yeah, like existing in different realms. It's almost like I feel like I could use the Witch Sister to tap into the Fae realm and access the Brian Froud Faeries. I really love this Ace of Stones card. Yeah, it's an interesting combo. Very, very potent. I feel like they really are going to pack a punch. Might need to do some playing with some readings with these two decks, because I do feel like the Brian Froud Faeries would provide me with that sort of guide energy. And that tends to be how I work with Fae anyway. It's kind of like guides into the unseen, into that other world. And then we have that paired here with the tarot and the potency of the Witch Sister Tarot, Ancient Starlight and the Hermit. Like, wow, these just really work. They really do. I'm liking it. I would love to know if you have the Witch Sister, what you pair it with. If you found any good pairings with it. I know it's a fairly new deck, but I'm really enjoying getting to know it. I've been following along. I'm a little bit behind, but following along in Lisa's member study, getting to know the Witch Sister, and I am really enjoying it so far. But I do really like it paired with the Fairies, and I'm glad to see that, because I just, for whatever reason, pairing the Tower of a Hidden Realm with the Brian Froud Fairies just didn't really click for me. And I'm not sure why that is. Again, it's probably a very me thing, but it just, there was a disconnect in my brain. This totally works. This feels like I'm accessing I'm in the real world through the Witch Sister, tapping into the, you know, potent power of that way of being, and then accessing the Fae realm through the Brian Froud Fairies. And maybe the difference was that the Tarot of a Hidden Realm didn't necessarily feel like Fae energy to me, but it definitely felt otherworldly. And we'll actually be seeing that come up later on, probably in another video and some other things that I'm going to be talking about. These are really cool though. I really like them. I can read this one, Unity, Queen of Skies, Four of Stones. That's really cool. Also, do you see here, are you seeing what I'm seeing? Okay, weird things pop out in my brain when I'm looking at cards. So we have this kind of like funnel, like it's kind of like fallopian tube shape going on here. And then we have also the skull on her headpiece kind of also flowing downward. And then even the nose on whatever this little creature is flowing downward. So there's this pull. It feels like each card has this pull down, like rooting down into the energy of each of these cards. I don't know why my brain went there, but it just did. Sometimes weird things pop out to me when I'm working with cards. I love the depiction of older women in this deck. It's phenomenal. It's definitely working its way up there into one of my favorites just because of that. Yeah, these are really cool together. Okay, let's just do one more here. So the next deck combo I have is featuring the Lilith Oracle. This is a very small oracle, as in like number of cards. I think there's only like 28-ish. And I'm pairing that, because it is Lilith focused, I'm pairing that with the Tarot of Vampyres. So I feel like, you know, Lilith, vampires, demons, like it all works together. Also like the red, from this angle, because I've edged this deck in red, I'm also seeing like red on the side. I need to edge this one, but I think I'm gonna edge this one in black, so it's the opposite. Here's the backs, which are beautiful together as well. So let's just take a flip through. I, however, cannot read the titles on this deck. Like I would have to pick it up, get my glasses, get really close. So we're not really gonna focus in on the titles. However, there is titles and keywords on the bottom. I just have to get into the guidebook because I can't read them. Because there's not that many, it's not that big of a deal to go through it. So like it's fine, but that's just something that I did want to for sure note. So let's just take a flip through the cards together and kind of just look at the energy, because I can't really read the keywords. I mean, some of them I can read the bigger ones. So this is Primal Scream. Between the Daughter of Grails and the Seven of Scepters. What are we thinking? I kind of like these together. I haven't found like a really strong Lilith deck pairing yet. And I'm thinking that maybe actually this might be it. This one says Dark Mother with the Moon and the Five of Skulls. Again, there's keywords on the bottom that I cannot read. Even if I had my glasses in this light, I can't read it. So it's okay. I have a guidebook. So yeah, I am actually feeling this in terms of like Lilith energy. The Tarot of Vampyres is actually a deck I've kind of struggled with a little bit, because if I want a vampire-esque deck, I actually tend to go more toward the Horror Tarot, which I have nicknamed my Castlevania deck. That just sits more in alignment with the energy that I want. If I want that darker energy, I go to the Goetia. So like the thing is, I have other decks that kind of sit in this, what I feel vampire represents for me. I don't necessarily need a quote unquote vampire deck, but I really do like the Tarot of Vampyres. I just haven't really found its place because I don't really work with vampire energy. So this might be it. This might be my combo. It might become my Lilith deck, because that is an energy that does really sit very squarely with Lilith. And I think the two actually work together really well. So I'm really pleased with this. This might be my new Lilith combo. I'm happy about that. I'm glad to see that I found a pairing that actually sits very firmly in the space, because I hadn't at this point found a deck that really keyed into Lilith. I have decks that sit in similar energies. Like I said, vampire energies. Like I have my whole like boyfriend dark urge thing going on with the angels and the demons. Like that's a whole experience there. But this deck, the Tarot of Vampyres, didn't really fit in with that. So I'm happy to see it slotting in here. I think these are actually really good together. And rather than it being a quote unquote vampire deck for me, I think it might slide into being my Lilith deck, which would be really fantastic. Because like I said, I haven't had a Lilith deck. So I'm really excited about that one. I'm also really excited to find a good place for the Tarot of Vampyres in my practice, because I've wanted to use it. It's just never really fit anywhere. So maybe this is it. I think I'm going to keep these out and try to do some Lilith readings and see how they work together in that way when I'm working with the Tarot of Vampyres, specifically connecting with Lilith energy. Yeah, I am kind of sold on these. They're kind of amazing. All right, let's just do one more. I'm trying not to linger too long, but like, I mean, there's really not that many cards in this oracle. Should we just flip through them all? Let's just flip through them all. I cannot read that. Mother of something with the Emperor and the Queen of Knives. Let's just flip through them all because it's a very small oracle deck. But the guidebook that comes with it is really good. So like again, it's one of those where I kind of make exception. I definitely tend to like my oracles to at least have at least 40 cards. This one doesn't even have 30, and that's sometimes an issue. But if the deck is done well enough, and I do think the deck is beautiful, there's a lot of border going on, and I suspect that that's because the creator probably didn't have high enough resolution of these images to blow them up. So good on them. That's a good design choice. You never want to blow up your images. That's a bad idea. It pixelates them, and then people like me get really pissy about it. So I'm guessing they kept the images at their original size and then put all the border. That's just a guess based on what I know about like design aspects, right? But I think it's a gorgeous deck actually, and the guidebook is really fantastic. So I think this is the last one. Yeah. So I'm excited to work with it and excited to use it. And I don't feel like super slighted that it's just a little oracle when there's a really great written guidebook to go with it. All right, let's move on to the next pairing. So the next little combo I have for you might be a repeat because I feel like I've done this combo like on a video, but I can't remember if that was in a member video or if I did it another playing with pairs. So if this is a repeat and you've already seen it, I apologize. It's a pairing that I either thought about doing or I did do or whatever. Anyway, this is the Dirt Gems Oracle, and I'm pairing it with the Good Omens Tarot. Now, both of these are fairly new to my collection. The Dirt Gems is much, much newer, and I specifically bought it. Here's the backs. I specifically bought it, I do believe, to see if it would pair with the Good Omens. Also because I was really interested in it, and when it was a indie deck, this is now the mass market version, and of course the Good Omens is mass market. I was really interested in it when it was out indie, but I have issue with decks, and I've mentioned it before, where there's just the thing on it, particularly when it's like a plant thing, because I don't know anything about the plants, and that doesn't do me any good. So I'm not sure how it's actually going to work in practice, because I'm going to be very either reliant on the guidebook to know what these cards are representing in my reading, or I'm going to have to go strictly intuitive off the art. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Somebody mentioned pairing this with the Outgrow Yourself, and that would be great. Looking at this card, that would be great. That's probably something I should play with, but I feel like this was what I was thinking when I got this deck. I can't even remember now. That's the problem when you make too many videos. Like, you forget what you said, where you said it, when you said it. Anyway, I really like the Good Omens Tarot. The first time I went through it, I was like, I'm not getting it. But I think it was just more of a time and place of where I was at in my life at the time, and I just wasn't in the mood. So now I'm actually quite enjoying it. I really like the color palette. I really like the art style of it. I am still struggling to find the right oracle deck to pair it with. I was hoping the Dirt Gems, but even just looking at it now, I mean, I can definitely pull in the art. Okay, I do feel like I've shared this before, because I feel like I've talked about these black and white cards where I want to remove them from the deck, and not just remove them like as in get rid of them, but remove them, separate them out so that they don't come up when I'm wanting to work with the colored cards, and leave them as their own sort of deck to work with in a black and white capacity, right? So when I specifically don't want color, but I want this energy, I think it would work well for that. I'm really not even looking at, like, we have an enemy with the Queen of Demons and the Nine of Demons, and like this, I can go off the artwork, but I'm missing that keyword. I'm missing that keyword. And I feel like I've been here before. I've said this before, so I apologize if you're hearing this again and I'm just repeating myself like a broken record. I would really like to find an oracle deck to pair with the Good Omens. So if anybody has it might have been a members video because I feel like I talked about this card in relation to our tarot adventure. So that might be where I'm remembering that from. I do a coffee and cards every month with my members where I go through and basically do first impressions on all the new decks that have come into my collection from one month to the next. And a lot of times I do end up like pulling in some pairings because I'm like, oh, let's see, like, because it's a play, right? Let's see if these go together. Anyway, so sometimes I do feel like I'm repeating myself, so apologies to my members for that. But I like aesthetically, I like them together. It's just, I wish this had some sort of keyword. I might just write a keyword on it because I do actually really like the aesthetics of it. I feel like the kind of folk arty collage is really cool. Like that sort of illustrated collage. I don't know, it's really cool. I really like it. It just needs keywords, and maybe I'll just like take a white, because they're all on these dark backgrounds. Maybe I'll just take a white paint pen and just pick a keyword out of the guidebook and write them on the cards. So I've divided them up, and I'll say like there's probably a point in the guidebook for the black and white versus the color, but like actually that's quite a decent chunk. So I think I'm just gonna leave them separate, and I will use these as like their own sort of oracle, because that's a decent chunk. And then this is a nice sized oracle in terms of how many cards, and then I've got like all of these. Also, it's matte gilded, which is nice. It's a little bit large for an oracle, but like I really like these ones. I tend toward black and white. I do really like black and white stuff, but actually in this deck, I'm really not as fond as these ones. So actually I might just put them in the bottom of the box for right now, or separate them out and then just keep and work with these ones, because I feel like these ones have more of a pull for me, but I still need to like write a keyword on them. I just really feel like that needs to happen. All right, so the next little pairing I have is the Blooming Lovelies Oracle, which is another Krista made me do it. This is an indie oracle deck, and I have it paired here with the Tarot for the Great Outdoors. I will be honest, I threw a whole fit with my members when I opened this deck because the cardstock is so bad. It's terrible. It came out of the box so ridiculously bowed, like I hadn't even touched it, and it was like that. It was bad. Anyway, I threw a fit. I had a moment. It's a mass market deck. It is fairly new, I think, out, and I'm really struggling to decide whether or not I'm actually going to keep it because I didn't have the greatest reaction to it from the get-go. But I do actually really like the illustrations, and it is like kind of camping and outdoorsy. So my thought process here is to pair this Blooming Lovelies, which is a very sort of inner child kind of a deck. It's got some really fantastic fun keywords on it, with this idea of sort of camping and getting out and adventuring. So as I'm babbling, let's flip through a few of the cards. I just thought maybe they might be an interesting combo of kind of bringing in that playful energy and then taking it into the outdoors for exploring it, right? The key phrases on this are fantastic. Answers are questionable things. And we have that between the Lovers and the Six of Blades. So interesting. I do really like the artwork in the Tarot for Outdoors. So hopefully I will get over my initial cardstock snobbery. But it was such a shock. It was such a shock to see how flimsy and bowed the deck was when it came out. Anyway, we have the Swoopy Sky Punk wins the chips, which is totally true, between Death and the Five of Stones. Interesting. I feel like this would be an interesting combo to like really look at how to explore the sort of like inner child landscape. Almost like the tarot deck could provide that exploration energy. And then how can you take this Page of Blades and this Ten of Vessels, you know, being on this lazy river, having this snowball fight, and tie that into, but you like it a bit weird. I freaking love that card. It might be my favorite card in the deck. There's so many good cards in this deck. Like I still want to play with it. I want to find like lots of different ways to work with this one because it's so great. But I'm thinking that these two together might be let's explore, right? Because I was trying to think of the great outdoors as beyond just, you know, the literal looking at outdoor space, but how can we use it as a way to encourage exploration? And I love this idea of exploring the inner child. So we have Page of Vessels, Seven of Vessels, and do not wonder what the brouhaha is all about if you started the brouhaha. That's kind of interesting between these two cards, right? Especially when we have very active energy going on. Also water going on. Really cool, actually. Okay, so this little pairing might actually be enough to save this deck in my collection because I really like these together. And I love the idea of it as exploring that inner child energy. This would be another deck that I would be really tempted to pull the Oracle card first and to think about the decks in my collection and then pick the tarot based on the single Oracle card. That's something that I do a lot. I think I've done whole videos on it, or at least a whole video on it. So like, I don't know, because this one has a crocodile, like I might be tempted to pull out my Queen Alice tarot. I mean, I love the idea of exploration through, you know, the lens of the inner child. I think that this actually works really well, but I might have to try that with this deck. So taking decks that I wouldn't normally associate with inner child, pulling one of these and then roping that into the energy. That would be really cool. I don't know. Let me know if y'all be interested in like a video on that, because that might be fun to explore. I know some of my pairings, like they're aesthetic, right? Of course they are, because I like the aesthetics and I totally admit I like the aesthetics. But I also need them to have a real function, right? I don't just pull out decks just to throw down pretty pairings just to look at pretty pairings. If I'm going to do that, then that's, you know, something I'm doing here, kind of a playing with pairs. However, there's like a purpose, right? My purpose is to find decks that actually work together as well as being aesthetically pleasing. Because I want them to have like a reason for being on the table, right? It's not just because they're pretty. They need to have a reason for being on my table. The beetle has better places to be with the Four of Blades and the Wheel of Fortune. That's really cool. Yeah, I like these together. This is such an interesting little combo, and I love that idea of exploring inner child. So the last pairing I have is the Circe Tarot paired with the Green Witch's Oracle. I honestly had no idea what to pair this tarot deck with. Let's take a look at the backs. I think I forgot to show you the backs on the last decks, but the backs are pretty. I don't feel like I have an Oracle that really sits in this space in my collection. So that means that the tarot may not stay long term, but I really do like the art in the Circe Tarot. It's got a very like moody vibe to it. It feels a bit like that fluorescent tarot, which I did order the new version of, I'm just saying. Anyway, so I thought maybe I'd pair it with the Green Witch Oracle because it's a kind of like unobtrusive oracle. There's a lot of white space, which creates breathing room in the reading. It also has a succinct like title and then a few keywords, but it has that same kind of little bit darker, moody, illustrative style. I mean, it kind of hard to tell because of all the white around it, but if you really look at the colors, they're very deep and rich and kind of moody. So I felt like maybe they might work together. If you have the Circe Tarot and you have a deck, an oracle that you pair it with, I would definitely love to know, because I'm really struggling to find something to pair this one with. Not that every deck needs to have a pairing in my collection, but I tend to like them to, because that is primarily the way I work with my decks. And if I have a tarot that I can't pair, that's an issue for me. So let's see what we have. Snow with the Ten of Swords and the Page of Cups. Okay. The Sun with the Fool and the Eight of Swords. I mean, I do really like the illustrative style of the Circe Tarot. Like, it's a mood. I think that's what it is. It definitely feels like a mood for me. Like, it's a moody deck. I haven't actually worked with it yet, so I'll be curious to see like where I end up pulling it into readings, like how I end up working with it. Because I feel like it's a deck that I might want to pull in when I'm feeling moody. like it kind of in the darker moody space. I don't know, it just totally has that vibe to me. Potion with the Nine of Swords and the Moon. I mean, this works. It's not blowing me away like some of the others have. I think it works well enough, but it's not like a match made in heaven, right? It's not a perfect pair, but like it would work well enough if I needed to pair an oracle with this tarot deck. I think I could get on board with it, but I think there's got to be something better out there. Harvest between the King of Wands and the Hermit. Yeah, there's got to be something better. Do y'all have an idea? Any thoughts? I would love to find something that would actually pair really well with this, because it's not even just that like aesthetically they're not really that cohesive. It's also energetically they're feeling like they're sitting in two different spaces for me. But this just feels like the wrong energy. like illustration style, the color palette matches, but I love this card. Hearth with the Lovers and the Empress. I mean, prove me wrong, deck. Prove me wrong now that I'm talking smack about you. That really worked well. But like Rosemary between the Six of Pentacles and the Five of Pentacles, I don't know that I'm feeling that. Yeah, I don't know what I think. It's not blowing me away. It's not bad, but it's not blowing me away. So I wish I had a better pairing to end on, but this is where we're at. Are we gonna play this game? We are, because I always think I need to play this game. So that's another little installment of playing with pairs. I absolutely love doing this series. I hope you all enjoy it too. As always, you'll find links for everything I've shown here in the description box of this video. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and I look forward to sharing with you again soon.